is Judgment Day.
Okay.
Which means the second coming, Armageddon, and the end of the world, so to speak. So since Brother Mike is not here at the moment, let me ask you the question. Tell us the difference between Rapture, Judgment Day, and Armageddon.
Essentially, rapture is described by Paul as a taking up. It's when all the good Christians described in the Bible will be taken up into heaven before the final perdition, and like all the sinners on earth will get cast down into judgment. Judgment Day is the end of that, which according to Harold Camping, who is making the predictions, and Brother Mike is sort of disseminating the information as well, that day will be about 5 months from the May 21st date. So that's when God sort of steps in, ends everything, and then the 1,000 years of Jesus reigning in this perfect kingdom will begin.
And that's after the final judgment.
Yes.
So in between that, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, in between the time that rapture happens, which is the Christians gathering in air, between that time and the final judgment, Satan has been pushed into a bottomless pit, if you believe that aspect of it. Pushed into a bottomless pit, and during that, it's not until Judgment Day that Satan is released from the bottomless pit and the final battle happens, correct?
Yes. So after all the Christians are pulled up into heaven, Satan, or the beast, as he's referred to in Revelation, comes out, and then if you've ever read Revelation, it's a pretty crazy sort of nightmare-scape. 22 chapters of just absolute crazy visions.
It's definitely the best book in the Bible.
It's up there. I mean, all the apocalyptic literature is pretty good. Like Daniel's really good. Ezekiel and Isaiah, when they're tripping out on their visions, crazy stuff. Probably the most misunderstood books in the entire Bible.
Can you lay out a timeline? Let's say I wake up May 21st and I'm a devout Christian. What can I expect to have happen? What's the next day going to be like? What's the next week, month, the next year?
I love that this sounds like a sports cast.
Right. I want to know what's going to happen.
Before you go into that, let me remind the listeners that you can actually go to our from Zombie Popcorn Radio site. You can actually go to our 3D video site and join the chat room if you have questions for any of us here, or brother Mike when he gets on the show. So go ahead.
Okay. So essentially, in Revelation, what it lays out is that. Oh God, where is it? Actually, surprisingly, the rapture isn't even in Revelation. It actually comes from one of Paul's epistles. And I believe it's 1 Thessalonians. I forget though.
Well, I think you're right.
Thessalonians is the one I keep seeing.
Isn't it Thessalonians 4:17?
I think so. Yeah. I can double check that.
But, I mean, just what's your understanding of how this is going to go?
I could give a shit about it.
My understanding of it is that none of it's going to happen.
Wow. Maybe I should say your understanding of their understanding.
Of their understanding is, it's all very symbolic. And what it is the Christians are going to get pulled up into heaven, and then there's going to be the four horsemen, and there's these seals that are opened. But I believe actually,
with the Lamb opened the seven seals.
Exactly. It's a scroll with 7 seals and a lamb
the Enigma first
who
album?
is a lion who looks like a lamb that's slaughtered, comes over and opens it, and it's Jesus. It's all very symbolic and ironic at the same time. I believe Camping actually says that the seals were finally opened on May 21st, 1988, and that this has been a period of like judgment. I've been trying to work my way through the website, and actually I've read about 3 of the books. It's on Brother Mike's page there. All the literature's free, and it's it's up there.
And if you want to check it out, it is May-21-2011.com, all numbers. But you keep saying, was it camping?
Yes, Harold Camping.
Yeah. Back up before we get into the whole story. Who is Harold Camping and how does it relate to May 21st, 2011?
Harold Camping is, he is 89 years old. He was a civil engineer before he started preaching. And I believe he runs Family Radio, which is a Christian radio station. And in 1994, he came out, well, a little before, he came out with his first prediction that the rapture would happen in September of 1994. He did a little interesting backpedaling at the time where he said that 2011 is also a possible date if 1994 doesn't happen. But obviously, I mean, he said he'd be surprised if October 1st, 1994 came, and it obviously did. And now he's just sort of back at it now that 2011 is here.
I wish Brother Mike would sign on so we could talk to him because I have a lot of questions. But you mentioned that Camping predicted once and was wrong, backpedaled on that. But predictions for the second coming, for the rapture, is not a unique thing. I mean, there's a small thing that you can see, if you just do a quick search on Google and pull up a wiki link on notable raptures. The first one they have listed is 1844, and William.
That's actually 44.
What did I say?
1844.
Yeah,
It was actually the year 44 of the Common Era.
Oh, sorry. Is that what you're saying?
About 14 years after the crucifixion.
Gotcha. So that it would happen.
There was probably one in 1844.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Really?
Actually,
there's like a list of 220.
about 220. Some of them are repeats.
Yeah.
But
some are in
it's
French,
about
so I can't read it.
in Latin, and it's all there's about 200 of them. And I mean, the thing with the end times and the rapture is like, Jesus said to his apostles before he left that he would come in their generation. And obviously when he didn't, people started, trying to interpret the word generation to mean something else. Paul said, the end is near, hurry up now because, Jesus is going to swing down on a cloud, come and usher in the new kingdom any day now.
Right.
And, that was the first century. So
Crazy.
Jesus is coming, boys. Look busy. What do you think the fascination is with all of these end times predictions? Is that something that's unique to human nature? Like, why do we do this all the time, and why do people believe it?
Yeah, but it seems to be more prevalent in Western religions. Well, all the Abrahamic religions are kind of like really down with the end.
It's a
you cross the pond further east, and no one's really concerned with it at all. It's
eschatology and like the end times is something that it comes out of Judaism. If you go, you can actually find apocalyptic literature in the Old Testament in Zechariah, Jeremiah, Joel, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and most notably Daniel was probably the best formed whole apocalyptic book. And it has to do mostly with the sense of like when people are suffering, it's sort of like a right now sucks. It's it's awful, but don't worry. This is gonna happen and everything's gonna be cool.
It's gonna get better.
And and it's a tradition that Christians coming out of Judaism clung on to.
It definitely makes for some of the better movies. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, why do I live in this culture where we're always obsessed with our end? But then I'm like, it gave us what was that Schwarzenegger movie where they
End of Days.
or it was awful.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'd rather read Revelation than the Epistle of Philemon any day. It's some of the other stuff's pretty boring.
Well, we now have Brother Mike on the phone, or not on the phone, but he just signed in. So let me give him a call real quick. I can share those.
Sorry.
Let me call brother Mike real quick. So.
Hello.
Brother Mike?
Yes.
How are you? This is Jason from Zombie Popcorn.
I'm doing real good.
Good.
How about you?
Good. We are live right now, just to let you know.
Okay.
We have in the room, we have Paul.
Hello.
Bob.
Hi.
And Ken.
How you doing?
And Ken is our special guest, outside of you, of course, wanting to talk about May 21st, 2011. We already started the conversation, and I started off the conversation with him to give us a definition, since a lot of people have a confusion on it. What's the difference between Rapture, Judgment Day, and Armageddon? And I would like to get your thoughts on that.
Judgment Day refers to the first day of 153 period, starting May 21st, in which God will begin to judge the human race. It'll begin with a huge earthquake, and so it will be unmistakable. On that same day, God's people will be raptured or taken up to heaven, and await there the creation of a new heaven and earth after this one is completely destroyed on October 21st, 2011.
Okay. So what happens to the Christians and the non-Christians during this time? Just so we can lay it out before we get into the deep discussions on it.
Yeah, the Christians will be taken up to heaven on May 21st, so they will no longer be here on this planet. Those who are left behind will be all the non-Christians. What I mean is all the unsaved of the world that have not found grace in the eyes through Jesus Christ. They'll be left behind, and they will have to suffer the penalty of what every human being deserves, which is death, because God originally created us perfect, but every human from the beginning and ever since has chosen to go their own way, and as a result, God said, the minute you do that, you shall surely die. So the consequences of human sin is death will begin on May 21st with the earthquake, with millions of people dying, probably every day, with the complete annihilation of this entire cosmos on October 21 by fire. So the difference is the believers will not be here. The unsaved people will remain, and that we know from the Bible will be in the billions of people.
And just because there's a lot of different viewpoints, and so we can get yours on this. During the part of after the Christians, or after the unsaved remain, there's that moment of torture and torment, but some believe that there's a final judgment after that, right before the world ends, engulfed in flames, that there's a second chance for the unsaved to be saved. Is that true with your belief? And what happens if it is?
No, there will be no second chance. The chance that people have is right now. That's why we're getting the message out and working so diligently to get the message out about May 21, in hopes that there will be some people who hear it and will seek God for salvation before it's too late. On May 21, it'll be just like the days of Noah. After, as Scripture says, when Noah entered the ark, God closed the door, and that happened to be on the 17th day of the second month of the biblical calendar at that time. Amazingly, even though we worked this out from a completely separate pathway when we came to May 21, 2011, in the Bible, amazingly, if we translate that into the biblical or Hebrew calendar, May 21, 2011, once again is exactly the 17th day of the second month. That is when the door was closed on the ark, and nobody was allowed to get in and be saved at that point. May 21 is the same way. The door of salvation will be shut. God's people will be taken to heaven, and there will be no other opportunity. The idea of Armageddon being a physical conflict out in the world, which is how most people see it, some kind of battle in an outward physical sense, is not taught in the Bible. The Armageddon taught in the Bible is a spiritual battle against the forces of Satan and wickedness, against that which is the truth in the gospel, which comes to its head on May 21. In other words, we're in that battle now, but it comes to its maximum point right at May 21, at which point God will be shown to have been the winner, as all the people that have rejected Jesus Christ, turned their own way, have not repented, will realize at that time, and the battle will clearly have been won by God himself.
You run the website may-212011.com. I have it up in the videos chat room for people to see it. You can go get more information. You give away free literature on their videos to let people understand that the Judgment Day is coming. From what I understand, that Harold Camping is the individual who came up with, or who did the calculations to find out that May 21st, 2011 will be Judgment Day. Can you talk a little bit about this mathematical equation that he did dealing with atonement, completeness in the heaven?
Well, there are tons of proofs. Perhaps the simplest proof for people to see is the fact that from the time of the flood, well, first of all, there was a calendar worked out based on the genealogies of the Bible, Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 11 primarily, where, it says such and such was born, he lived so many years, and he begat such, and then that person lived so many years, and he begat such, and he lived so many years. Well, we've only learned in the last 23 years how to put those together properly, so that once we know how to put them together, we just add up the numbers and we end up with a biblical calendar starting at Adam as the point 0, and for example, going all the way up, we see all the different events taking place. For example, until we come to the death of Solomon, say in 931 BC. Which is according to the modern day calendar. The point is there's a calendar, and what we do is we take that biblical calendar and we align it with the modern day calendar at common points of commonality. And once we do that, then we can go back, and based on the modern calendar, we can tell exactly when the flood took place, which was 4990 BC. Amazingly, May 21st, 2011 is exactly 7,000 years from that date. And as I told you, it even lands on the 17th day of the second month, just like it did in the days of Noah. It's absolutely amazing. And we came to May 21 from a completely separate path from that. This was just one of the proofs that God gave us recently in showing us that we were on the correct path. So
Brother Mike, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Well, you said we've only been able to put this together in the last 23 years. What was the new bit of knowledge that allowed you to make, to draw these conclusions? What was the new element?
Well, already about 40 years ago, God used Mr. Camping of Family Radio to create or to understand the biblical calendar in Genesis 5 and Genesis 11. Okay, that's been learned for years. We have known that, but God didn't give us the end time dates. After the death of Christ, the very end time dates, until just a matter of a few years ago, and that was because in the Bible it says, "Seal up the book until the time of the end." He told Daniel he was telling Daniel things that would come in the end, but then he said, seal the book up until the time of the end. And because we're now at the time of the end, and God has opened up all these truths that we could never see before, they've always been there. It's just God hid them in language, parabolic language that we could not perceive or see until God allowed us to, since he's in control of all knowledge and everything anyway. Now that he's opened the book, we know for certain, because of all the various proofs he's given, that this will take place on May 21. That will be the beginning of the end. And it's not strange that God would do that. When we look in the Bible, in every case that God brought judgment, he always gave them an exact date. He always revealed to his people the exact date. Like the destruction of Nineveh, he said 40 days and you're going to be destroyed. He always let them know an exact date. Or Sodom and Gomorrah, he revealed to Abraham, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Amos 3:7 says that God will do nothing unless he first reveals it to his servants, okay, the prophets. So this should not be considered strange at all based on biblical history, because that is the way God has always worked.
I think, go ahead, Ken.
Okay. I just had a question about exactly that calendar. The 7,000 years from the flood to now, and I'm wondering how he gets 7,000, and I kind of see it, but from the flood to Shem, the end of Shem, he lists 502 years. But it shouldn't be 502. It should be 2 if you read Genesis 11:10, because Arphaxad was born 2 years after the flood, not 502 years. It seems like he's taking the life of one person and butting it up to the life of the other, instead of, overlapping them like they would or are in the Bible.
Well, yeah. One of the rules in putting the calendar together is if God uses the Hebrew word Korah Shem, that means called his name. And whenever God uses that, we know that it's an immediate son. If we go through the Bible and look at that every place, we see that it always refers to an immediate son. If he doesn't say Korah Shem, he usually says begat. And begat doesn't have to be an immediate son. It could be a great grandson or a great-great-grandson. But it could also be an immediate son. So you have to look very carefully at all the Bible evidence to see which it is. But if they're an immediate son, what you do is you can see overlap. If they're not an immediate son, then what God did is he's using each person as a calendar patriarch, and their entire lifespan is being used to designate the time period in that day. And so you just line such and such lived all these years and begat such and such, and then that such and such is referring to someone, a great-grandson or a great-great-grandson, that then upon the death of the original person, the next person was born. So God made it that way so there would be no breaks in time and years, so that we could go back and discover these things. But like I said, certain rules like that we didn't understand in the Bible is why the calendar was attempted to be put together some hundreds of years ago by a person named Bishop Ussher.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Bishop Ussher. I just wanted to, it seems to fly in the face of Genesis itself. Like, for example, Genesis 5:22 says, Enoch walked with God after the birth of Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. That means, but when you add that to the 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah, it seems to add up to what Camping is saying. And it doesn't seem to be correct. I mean, if you take one of the two verses in the couplet that makes up what seems to be one generational ancestry, then yes. But it, like I said, it seems to fly in the face of the following passage.
Yeah, I know Enoch. It like I said, God has even given us proofs that it was done correctly. Like if you need to study the calendar closely. It's really hard to, and all that's on my website at May-21, 2011. But God has shown us, given us proofs that putting the calendar together in that way is completely accurate, and He shows us that through the genealogies that took place during the Egyptian captivity. There's a time bridge there that if you work through by putting the people from their lifespans from end to end, you see that it equals exactly 430 years, which is exactly what other verses tell us was the time period of the captivity, 430 years. So there's a proof right in that the putting the calendar together was done correctly, and in fact it won't even make sense if you do it like Bishop Usher tried to do it. It doesn't even it's not possible to even work like that, and that's why he came up with a shorter period of about 6,000 years or so.
October 23rd, 4004 BC.
Yeah, because he didn't realize that the how to put the calendar, and nobody did, because like I said, God hid it until the time of the end, just like He told Daniel that He would do.
I think we could probably, go back and forth and talk about the nuts and bolts of how you arrived at May 21st, 2011. But I guess my question at this point is, I know you guys are out. I've seen the vans and the bumper stickers and the website and the literature, and you guys are out trying to, to promote your belief. And you mentioned so you said on May 21st, it's over. All bets are off. But, and this is my question in a roundabout way, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Right now, there are people living on the planet who have never heard of or even imagined a person such as Jesus Christ. And not only are they out there, but they're protected peoples. We can't even go talk to them because, they're protected primitive tribes. So where do they fall in the judgment?
Well, I mean, the Bible says the gospel would go out to the whole world, and then the end would come. So we know that that's going to be completed as far as what God considered to be going out to the whole world on May 21st. All the people that God certainly intended to hear the gospel will have heard the gospel. Now understand that it says in Romans chapter 1 that there's no human being that's without excuse, with excuse, because the things of God are clearly seen, even His Godhead, through the things that are created. So the reality of the matter is nobody has any excuse whatsoever to say there's not a God, to say any of that kind of stuff, because God has made it clear through His Scripture. I mean through the creation. If I asked you who built your house, you're going to say someone designed it, and then someone built it. Well, obviously an intelligent being did it. Is it any less wise to say that, look at a tree and say someone must have built and designed that? Absolutely not. It would be foolishness to think that there's not a God.
That's another philosophical argument. I mean, and when you raise that question, then my question to that would be, well, who created the Creator?
And nobody's created the Creator.
I mean, but that's the next logical step. What I'm talking about specifically with regards to May 21st is how our indigenous people that have no contact with the modern world, how are they to know about this, and where does that square in the final judgment? But I hear what you say. Like, somehow in the next month and a half, somebody's going to talk to them. I guess, is that what you're saying?
Well, if they're one of God's elect, it's not like God is giving everyone a chance, because in Adam and Eve, he already did that, and everyone since them has chosen to go their own way, and so they're spiritually dead. If God doesn't break the deadness and bring life to particular individuals, nobody would become saved. He does that out of his love, and he's chosen to save a remnant, that is the minority from every tribe and nation and country and so forth. And he does that through the hearing of the gospel, because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. But he is certainly not being unfair if someone far off in the middle of nowhere doesn't hear anything, because nobody deserves anything anyway, and every single human being deserves death. And if God is going to be just, he could just destroy everyone, and he'd be totally, perfectly holy in doing so. But in his love and grace for his creation, he's decided to save some, and he has the right to do that, because he is the creator. And so, regardless of whether someone hears it or not, is irrelevant, because nobody deserves anything. But he will. Everyone he's planning on saving will definitely hear the gospel.
And I want to thank you real quick for coming on the show and talking to us. I don't want you to feel like you're being ganged up on anything. Everybody's
That's all right. I mean, I'm always ganged up on.
Well, I don't want you to feel that. I don't want you to feel that.
I know I'm always in the minority.
Well, we just want to let you. I just want to let you know that these questions are from the heart, and they're not, because we're believe it or not, we are all curious of why people believe the way they do, and that was. And with that said, I want to bring up a question. Is like, what happens on, and I'm just asking this out of curiosity, on May 22nd and nothing happens? Is the purpose of what you're doing and the whole message behind May 21st, 2011 to let people know, to help spread that gospel? I mean, as you saw when you read my bio, that I have a lengthy animal rights activist type background, and for several organizations that I've worked with, actually one organization that I've worked with does campaigns and protests in terms to get people's attention, to get people to talk about the issue, to get people to realize, you know, just get it on their tongue and in their mind, so that because once you do that, people are more open and receptive to it, and they understand it more, and they're more likely to, you know, adapt at least a little bit of what you're trying to achieve, whether it's, you know, for the topic that I'm talking about, animal rights. Is Judgment Day predictions or Armageddon, or whatever phrase you want to give it, similar to that? I mean, I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, if you follow the Bible, you shouldn't think that God is returning. I'm just asking, if you just look at history, that there's been so many false predictions of Armageddon, and I'm just curious if those false predictions are nothing more than promotional items to get people to go to church, to read the Bible, to learn more about the issue. And do you truly, deep in your veins, believe that May 21st, 2011 is it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have no reason to be doing this unless I truly believed it. I mean, listen, it's not fun to have everyone hate you.
We don't hate you, so.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who do, and that come up, you know, because, you know, they think I'm false, or they think, you know, the people that are doing this are false, or they think they're doing it for money. Listen, I don't make money off of doing this, okay? I don't even have a place for donation on my site, if you look.
And that is true. That is true. You don't have a place, and everything you're giving away on your site is free.
And it's all free. All the information is free. Every bit of it, whether you get it in the mail or whether you take it off of the internet, and even the postage is paid through the mail. So we have no interest in making money. The only interest we have is getting the truth out, so that people whom God has elected to save will hear the truth. And if they are one of God's people, like Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice, they will hear the truth and they will come to salvation. So my heart motivation is that God's people, all his people, would be saved, and that comes through the proclamation of the gospel. And like I said before, I hear all the time, especially from people who call themselves Christian, that, why do you do this kind of stuff? You should just be proclaiming the gospel and not even concerned about when Judgment Day is, and that's what they think the Bible teaches. But that's just not what the Bible teaches. Like I said, every single example in which God has brought judgment, he's always revealed it to his servants in order to warn the world. I have not been able to find one example in the Bible in which that's not the case at all. And so, we're basing everything on the Bible. We're not having a dream or revelation, and we didn't have a bad taco last night or something. It all comes from the Bible. We're seeking to serve the Lord and to do what he wants us to do. We want all of his people to be saved. And Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So true love is based upon keeping the commandments of Christ. And that's what we're seeking to do.
And that's why you spread the word.
Right.
Again, your website is may-212011.com. If anybody wants to know more about that, you have videos, you have free literature, you have audio, and including study tools on there. Some of the...
Any plans to come to Norfolk?
Come to where?
Norfolk, Virginia. Now, you guys are, it's you've hit several cities: South Carolina, Texas.
The caravans are, hitting as many cities as they can, major cities, and they're carrying teams with them that are, going out during the days and passing out, hundreds of thousands of tracts everywhere they go. Definitely doing that. There's well over 1,000 billboards that have been put up in a lot of the major cities across the country, and there's a heck of a lot more than that in other countries of the world. This is not. There's no commander-in-chief, human king, or human anybody who is regulating and guiding this. The amazing thing is that God himself, Jesus Christ, is our commander, and he's raising up his people around the world, and it is just incredibly miraculous from my perspective to see what he's doing. He's marshaling all of his people to get this message out, and it's just a wonderful thing to see.
So, just to bring up people who don't know up to speed, there are crews of people traveling the country or regions of the country in vans that read the message May 21st, 2011, Judgment Day, handing out leaflets and trying to get that message out there, correct?
Correct.
Is there any way that listeners, or even for myself, can find out where they're at, where they're going, what they're, like if there's a website that has their itinerary on it?
Yeah, definitely. You can go to familyradio.com, and on their front page there should be a link toward the Caravan Project, I believe it's called. Click on that, and they do list where they are at, and I believe where they're going. So that's a place you can go, is familyradio.com. Another place you can go is eBible. Well, I think Family Radio has that information. That's the best place to go to there. But to see all the other stuff that's going around the world, you can also go to ebiblefellowship.com. That's ebiblefellowship.com, and there you'll see all the thousands of billboards and stuff that have been going out around the world, and a lot of other things. And of course, you can, if you really want to see, you can go to my website at may-212011.com and click on the radio, TV, and other publicity links, and you can see just all the TV commercials and all the incredible things that are taking place. around the world in all the different languages.
I had a question for you.
This kid.
How do you rationalize Mr. Camping's original prediction of 1994 as being incorrect?
Yeah, that's a question. That's a question I always get, and I'm laughing because I had a new media company. They make those real funny videos on the political things or whatever. And they sent me their latest video comparing 2011 with 2012. They wanted me to put it on my site. And what they did is they equated 1994 with 2011. I did like the fact that they portrayed the Mayans as human sacrifice people, which because they were, but they were incorrect, like so many people are, in equating 1994 with 2011. The idea is, well, 1994 came and gone, so will 2011, and that's the inference that the video portrays, but it's completely incorrect. Mr. Camping, I understand I'm not affiliated with Mr. Camping in any way. I've studied all this stuff myself. I've come to my own conclusions. I don't agree with Harold Camping on everything, but I do on 2011 and May 21. But what I was saying was that comparing 1994 with 2011. So many people say, "Oh, heck, he's a false prophet. He said 1994, and it didn't happen. It's not going to happen in 2011 either." It's just not true. He wrote a book, 1994, with a question mark after it because he wasn't absolutely sure about 1994. And in the book, he even said it could possibly be 2011. Yeah. We know since that time, the proofs and the evidences and the signs have just come in so overwhelmingly that God has opened up our understanding since then that we know absolutely for sure about 2011, and that was never the case for 1994. There really is no comparison between the two.
I guess my question is really like, what if there's still something missing? I mean, I understand Mr. Camping also, and I've read that you don't agree with him and you're not working for him or anything like that. But there was an amount of like essentially numerology that he set out with this whole long equation that ended up being May 21st, 2011. And no matter what language I used as the source material, I could not make it work. I ended up with dates between June 2nd, 2147 and January 30th, 7884. So, I mean, what if there's still that one piece? I mean, hypothetically, one piece that's still missing and escapes you, and how do you rationalize that?
Well, if I'm doing an experiment, say, for example, on gravity, if I drop a book and it falls every time I drop the book, and then I go up on the airplane and it does the same thing, and I go here and I repeat the experiment over and over, and I keep getting the same results, eventually I have to say gravity is a fact. And that's the way it's happened here. The proofs, 3 years ago, nobody could say it was a fact. 2011, it was a high probability is what we were saying. But over the last 3 years, we've had so many proofs that God has revealed in the Bible, all coming from the Bible, from so many different angles, so many different scriptures, that he's confirmed it over and over again. So we would not be faithful to God to say there's only a possibility that it's going to happen. We know for sure that it's going to happen, based on all the support and evidences. And there's a lot. If you follow all the links on my site and read all the information, I think I wrote a few proofs that are on my site, but there are so many, if you follow the links, other proofs as well, that it's just overwhelming. I was originally trained in the sciences and as a science teacher. So I have the kind of mind that's going to analyze something, and I'm going to look at the evidence, and I'm going to come to conclusions based on the evidence. And I would have to say mathematically, the chances are nil that it's not going to happen.
Well, Brother Mike, this is Bob. I like that you compared it to an experiment, because I think that's an interesting thought, and I like that you compared it to a gravity experiment, because if you were to do the gravity experiment, you would get the same result every time, and that would be Newtonian physics. But then years later, Einstein came along, and he showed that gravity was actually relative. It was relative to mass. And just because Einstein showed us something new, he didn't disprove Newtonian physics. He provided a deeper understanding. So how do you know that there's not that deeper understanding out there? How do you know what you don't know?
Well, the point of the matter is that that's the way we were looking at it a number of years ago, is that we had a high probability that it was going to take place in the year 2011 based on the evidence. Then more and more information, kept coming, and it hasn't changed that. It's actually supported it more and more and given us so many proofs that we have to now say, for certain that it's 2011. There comes a point, is what I'm saying, is that when the evidence becomes so overwhelming and the proofs are so many and various, that one has to, submit to the fact that this is fact, or this is truth. This is the way it's going to be. I don't know if you've read any of my website. You know that I'm not. We do not believe. We believe Satan, according to the Bible, is ruling all of the churches, and so the churches are teaching many, many false things that are really not what the Bible teaches. But that's what most people are exposed to. Are those kind of teachings. Satan is the Antichrist who has set himself up in the temple, which in the New Testament are the churches and congregations of the world. And he's the master deceiver. He comes deceiving people into worshiping him, but the people think they're worshiping Christ. And so they're totally deceived. There's so much falsehood out there. I know there's so many things to weed through. I can understand a person being completely confused and a sense of loss. But the difference between what we are saying and any other person has said throughout history is that ours comes completely from the Bible. Virtually all of the past predictors have had dreams or visions or some kind of revelations outside of the Bible. So there's no comparison between them and us. Satan tries to mimic or be the carbon copy, if you will, of truth, is what he does. And so he has come throughout history setting dates and saying this and this, knowing that when the true date came, that it would make people think, oh, this can't be true. It's just another one of those date setters, and we all have to have a few of those in our life. And it's not going to happen. That's what Satan wants people to think. And
I totally agree. I mean, because there's been a lot of teachings. I grew up fundamentalist in Texas, just to Baptist, and we are definitely taught that that Satan puts out deceivers to try to follow, make us fall off the path. So I want to bring the conversation back to the fact that that is laid out in front of us, and I want to talk about the details that Harold Camping put out, the equation that he put out, and I'm asking this because I don't know. He took his number one step on the equation. If you can actually see it on his website, and I think you have it on yours as well, or at least a link to it. That the number 5 equals to atonement, number 10 equals to completeness, and number 7 equals to heaven.
17.
17. I'm sorry. equals to heaven. I'm gonna go through the whole equation real quick, and I'm gonna come back and ask you a question. Number 2, Christ is said to have hung on the cross on April 1st, 33 A.D. The time between April 1st, 33 A.D. and April 1st, 2011 is 1,978 years. Number 3 is if 1,978 is multiplied by 365.22 or 2422 days, which is the number of days in a solar year, not a lunar year, the result is 449. The time between April 1st and May 21st is 51 days. 51 added to 722,449 is 722,500, which is 5 by 6 by 17, which is the atonement, completeness, and heaven equals the same as 722,500. So my question is, why are the words atonement, completeness, and heaven chosen for these numbers?
Because we see those numbers used throughout in lots of different places in the Bible that is clearly giving reference to that meaning. So we're using the Bible to be its own dictionary. We're seeing how God uses a number. Numbers are just words, by the way. So just like words can be symbolic, so can numbers be symbolic of something. That's just completely logical. But the proof that you there are giving is just one of the many. But it is true that there's 722,500 days from April 1 of 33 A.D. until May 21 of 2011, and that's what we call. Till May 21 of 2011, and when we break that number down into its spiritually significant numbers, we say spiritually significant because these are numbers that consistently in the Bible have a symbolic or spiritual meaning. And when we do that, it comes to 5 times 10 times 17 times 5 times 10 times 17. And so the number 5 relates to the atonement, the number 10 to completeness, the number 17 to heaven. So what God is saying, is the atonement or redemption, demonstrated by Christ's suffering and death on April 1, 33 A.D. That's the number 5 that has to do with the atonement, is 100% completed on May 21, 2011. That's what the number 10 represents, completion, when all the true believers are raptured into heaven. That's what the number 17 represents. So from that, what we're doing is we're just seeing God represent a time period and give meaning to it by numbers in the same way that he would by words. And that's completely logical. There's nothing illogical that God would do something like that. And the fact that he would use numbers or mathematics, since the whole creation is based on mathematics, it's completely logical as well. But that's just one of the proofs. We see these patterns once we have the biblical timeline. We can see these kind of number patterns all over the place in the biblical calendar, which would be mathematically impossible if you want to figure out the mathematical probability of all these number combinations coming about. It's just not humanly possible that could be by chance. And so it's, we know for certain that's just one proof that you give, and there's many other proofs. For example, it's exactly 6,023 years from creation to the flood. The number 23 in the Bible symbolizes judgment. 6 symbolizes works. And so God is telling us something about that time span from Adam until the destruction of the flood. And by using numbers, 6 represents works, the works of mankind ever from Adam up until the flood resulted in judgment because, their works were sinful. And so it resulted in the flood, and God uses numbers to symbolize that. And he uses the number 5023 from the flood to the judgment of Christ on the cross. Again, we see that number 23. He uses the same number 23 if we go from Adam to the end of the world. To 2011 is exactly 13,023 years. Again, we see the 23. The 13 in the Bible we can see consistently refers to the end of the world. And when we see 13 and the 23, the end of the world brings judgment. And we see these kind of number combinations and patterns. There's just many, many of them. If you go to my website at May-21, 2011, right there at the top left, there's a assembling the timeline of history. If you click on that and go to that website there, I believe there's all kinds of those number patterns you can find listed throughout the biblical calendar. And common sense tells me, and the scientific mind that tells me, that all of those combinations, maybe one or two, I might say, oh, maybe it's coincidence, But when you begin to see, we're talking about just all kinds of these things. No reasonable person could ever say that this is by chance.
Yeah. So where's that link at? I'm trying to pull it up so the people in our chat room can actually see it. You said it's
top my homepage, May-212011.com.
Okay.
To the left hand near the top, you'll see an article assembling the timeline.
Got it.
You click on that. That'll take you to a site where a lot of things are listed in chart form. So you can analyze a lot of the information. And there's a lot of it. This wasn't learned overnight. This was learned over decades. And so nobody's going to learn it overnight either. But there is tons of information.
I had a question. This is Ken again. The date, April 1st, 33 AD for the crucifixion date. In what I know, if you add up the only two times you find anything remotely close to a birth date for Jesus, which is how you would then calculate a death date, is in Matthew and Luke. And depending on how you add them up, neither comes to 33. Actually, in fact, April 1st, 33 wasn't a Passover. I assume Camping was using John because he came with 33. And in John, Jesus' ministry is 3 years, and he dies on a Passover. But it's not a Passover, and nor is it a Friday, which would make it a Good Friday event. But if you use Luke, you actually end up with a day of... Hold on. I got to go through my notes. I believe it's... well, in Luke, who had been born when Quirinius was governor of Syria, which started in 6 of the Common Era. But it only says he was around 30 when he died. But it says he starts his ministry in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Augustus, which would be the year 29. In Luke, he only has a 1-year ministry, which would then be the year 30. He's crucified the day after Passover, which ends up being, I believe it was... Where's my notes on this? April 7th, the year 30, which was the day after Passover, as it says in Luke. By that account, even if you use the numbers for atonement, completeness, and heaven, it turns out that the year 2008 would have been Judgment Day.
I don't really understand even what you're I don't understand what you're saying at all. But
I'm saying essentially that the crucifixion date is it seems to be made up whole cloth.
Oh no! It's not. For example, the history books show that Jesus was born. If you go to most of the older historical secular records, even they say that Jesus was probably born somewhere between 4 BC and 6 BC.
4 BC and 6 of the Common Era, when Quirinius became governor of Syria, between the death of Herod and
Right. But if you carefully study that, though, you'll find we know that based on a lot of the biblical evidence that 7 BC fits perfectly as being the time that Jesus was born, because it's a Jubilee year. Every 50 years there was a Jubilee year, and Jesus is the Jubilee. And we know that he was born in 7 BC, and that fits all the biblical data as well.
Well,
and
it doesn't fit.
If you study if you study all the biblical data very, very closely, most of the stuff is out of date because they're basing things on secular records instead of going through the Bible and seeing what the Bible has to say, and start with that as the starting point, and so they end up with faulty dates. You can't, the secular record is not inspired by God, and therefore there can be errors in the secular record. There can't be any errors in the Bible.
Well, there's essentially almost no secular record, but I'm actually quoting straight from Matthew and from Luke to get my dates, which would be, if Matthew was correct, crucifixion of April 11th, 27, or Luke would be April 7th, 30, which is either 2005 or 2008, depending on which one you use if you go with Camping's numbers.
No, I don't understand what you're calculating. Are you calculating the death of Christ and going from there? Is that what you're doing?
Well, that's where Camping starts when he says it's so many years from the death of Christ to such and such date.
Right, yeah. So we're saying that Christ was crucified in 33 AD.
Yes, and I'm saying that's not biblically accurate.
Well, I'm just trying to say I don't know where you're getting that information. What you said is not saying anything contrary to it. What are you talking about?
I'm calculating when Jesus would have died using the actual Bible.
How are you calculating that?
You count the number of Passovers in Luke. 1. Day after Passover is when he was crucified. And it says he started his ministry in the year 29, 15th year of Tiberius Augustus.
He was crucified on the Passover.
Day after Passover. In the Synoptics.
He crucified he is the Passover. He was crucified on the Passover, and according to the Passover date for 33 AD was April 1.
I believe it was actually April 4th.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'd have to see where you're getting that information, and it doesn't sound like I'm going to be able to do it.
Well, I'll be happy.
Where I'm at. I'd have to see a diagram. I'd have to see the scriptures that you got, and I would certainly be willing to take a look at that if you wanted to email that to me.
Yeah, Ken
definitely.
definitely wrote up a nice piece of where he got the data and the information, the calculations to, and we'll be happy to mail that to you, email that to you, so you can look at it and y'all can continue that discussion on another time, because I think we're kind of going back and forth here talking about things. So I want to give both of y'all final words before.
Yeah, and let me make this comment too. Just simply, I'm totally open to anything that's from the Bible. Okay, I'm not interested in speculation or people's mind or what. I'm interested in the Bible, and if you can really show that what you're saying is from the Bible and the Bible alone, and that's that I'm all for people sending me information and trying to show me that because I'm still learning too, and we're all still learning. And so but I have to say that at this point, with all the proofs and all the evidences, there's just so many different angles, so many ways, and that May 21 or 2011 is it. I've tried to look at it in so many different angles over the last number of years, and it just fits together so perfectly. It's not mathematically possible. It could be by chance. Just the fact that, amazingly, May 21, 2011 falls on the 17th day of the second month of the Hebrew calendar. You can see that if you just go to hebcal.com, click on their calendar converter, and plug in May 21, 2011 of the Gregorian date and convert it to the Hebrew date. It comes to the 17th day of the second month. According to Genesis 7:11, that's the exact day that the floodwaters came. And we came to that conclusion from a completely different biblical pathway. It was only a couple years ago that someone brought this up and realized this. None of this was devised trying to come to an end conclusion or trying to fudge or just to put it together. It's just mind-boggling that Scripture's written hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and separated by hundreds of years. Other Scriptures are put together, and they come together so harmoniously. It's just absolutely incredible. No way is it by chance. And but listen, even if someone had the mind of Einstein, or they were incredibly the most intelligent person in the world, that's not like Christ said. He praised God and said, I praise God that you've revealed this to to children. In other words, not the wise and the people considered to be great and awesome and in this world, because God's desiring to make foolish the wisdom of this world, because the wisdom of this world has rejected him and their own way. My heart is I want God's people to be saved. God's sheep hear his voice. When God came to Nineveh through the prophet Jonah and said, you have 40 days left, and that's it. You have 40 days left, and God's going to destroy you. In the Hebrew, it's only, I believe that's only 3 words, destroy 40 days. And that's all that Jonah said. And these were heathen. These were the enemies of God's people. The Ninevites were wicked and evil, and they were against God's people. And all Jonah said was 3 words. And they all repented in sackcloth and ashes. They didn't have a knowledge of the Scriptures. They didn't have any such thing. But they believed it because they were God's sheep. And they heard his voice regardless of whether they had all the proofs and all this kind of stuff. And the same is going to be for May 21, regardless of whether someone intellectually understands it. If they're his God's sheep, they're going to hear it, they're going to believe it, they're going to come to salvation, and be saved.
Excellent. So if you want to go learn more about the 21st, 2011, May 21st, you can go to May-21-2011.com. Brother Mike, I definitely want to thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule. I know you're on the road right now in a hotel room talking to us. Very enlightening. I deep in my heart, I hope it's not the end of times, because I still got a lot more to do. But I do appreciate you with your openness to come on the show and talk to us, talk to Ken, and talk to everyone listening. But we're coming to that point where we're going to move on with new topics. Again, his website is May-21-2011.com. Brother Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. Anything else you want to say before we move on?
I thank you very much for inviting me, and I really do wish you all the best.
Thank you. And I will, to answer your question in your email, I'll send you a link once the rebroadcast goes up so you can download the show.
All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, that was Brother Mike. His website is May-21-2011.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We had a cop out on the camera. The camera stopped halfway through, so
That's all right. I'm fat and ugly, so everybody's spared.
nobody wants to look at you anyway.
I'm offended. I dressed up.
You did dress up. You did. You look good. You look good. I'm going to step away from the mic real quick. I
Thoughts?
want y'all three to talk about the thoughts, definitely.
I'm interested. I mean, I do still stand by the fact that it seems that a lot of the numbers are just sort of made just whole cloth, like just complete fabrications.
I think the whole thing looks like a big exercise in retrodicting.
It is actually.
Like if it's 5 and 10 and 17, why can't it be 2 and 25 and 17?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
understand that.
Oh, that's the thing. Like I spent hours and hours. Like Jason said, I wrote it was like a 4-page paper,
Which is good.
And I thought he was using numerology. I mean, there's a rich tradition of numerology in both Hebrew and Greek, and I just simply could not make it work. I even tried English. I was like, camping couldn't be crazy.
No, I saw what you mean, and that's another that's another facet of it that we don't get to talk about. Like if they say that, like, what was it, heaven and atonement and completeness, right? They arrived at the numbers 5, 17, and 10. But if you use another numerology tradition, you arrive at yet another. But but I think here's the thing with that is that he maintains that is one of many proofs that support May 21st, right? And
Everything seemed to be.
you know what I was thinking too? And he said, like, there's signs of the end times, and I bet it's the new Bill and Ted movie. That's the sign of the end times.
Let me tell you, I heard about this on because we talked about this.
That's the only thing I could figure. I wanted to ask him what the signs were, and I was hoping he would say the new Bill and Ted movie.
Yeah.
But
It's going to be better than 2, man. It has to be.
Yeah.
But, right, and you're like the that, I don't know, what do you want to call it? That I don't know, white paper or something that you published. What was it, on Scrib?
Yeah.
What's that website?
Scribed,
I
guess.
I don't know. I'm new to this. I mean, I thought it was really
it's a
good.
long line over the I, not the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read it, and so first of all, the math nerd in me wants to point out that guy isn't using equations; he's doing arithmetic.
Yeah.
And second of all, it just seems like it's arbitrary arithmetic. Like, oh my God, the number 10. Well, it just so happens that the number 10 is my shoe size, and we've all seen in Monty Python that we have to gather shoes, so I could be the Messiah. It's that good.
And the funny thing is, like, you can
that's
pick
always how
any day.
numerology works. I mean,
But I thought, okay, one question I was going to ask, and I know you answered this fairly intelligently when we were walking the other day, but numerology, all of that it's forbidden by Christians. It's considered
It's only when it's used by non-Christians.
and I was going to bring that up, and I totally forgot about it. But
Well, I think that his answer would be fairly simple in that whatever church you attended that espoused an idea that numerology was wicked, that was a church of the deceiver. And
guess,
dude, this guy was like one logical fallacy after another. I mean, that's the logical fallacy of the true Scotsman, right? Mm-hmm. He has the truth and we don't know. He has the special knowledge and we don't know about it. And you could say, well, I was raised Christian. Well, you weren't raised a real Christian. Yeah. You don't know the real thing. And that's I don't know. I mean,
it's one step away from, well, even the devil could quote scripture.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, just for the disclaimer, I mean, he was very nice to come talk to us.
Yeah,
I don't want to think anything.
Sincere in his belief.
Yes, and I don't want to think anything that would have said right now is looking down upon him for his beliefs, who he is as an individual, or anything like that. We are just
because he's not.
He's not crazy. He's not.
This is a far cry from
church
in Kansas.
Well, yeah. The woman that I interviewed like, with the Westboro Baptist Church. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
I'm here to help.
I think he's a little crazy.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because any worldview that has a cutoff date or an expiration date, that's a little crazy.
Well, even in science, there's a cutoff date.
No, there isn't.
Shh.
Just kidding. There is no cutoff date. It goes on it goes on. I mean, we don't even. The thing is, okay, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I can promise you there will be a tomorrow.
The dinosaurs were saying the same thing.
That's right. But even after the dinosaurs,
I think you mean Jesus.
went extinct. Yeah, right. But the dinosaurs didn't go extinct. Well, yeah, right. They went extinct in 53 days, and then they were judged. And no, that's not what happened to them.
Well,
they,
you weren't
died
there.
out.
I mean,
they died out over millennia.
In all honesty, you know.
No, but they're also dinosaurs. They were the most
It could have
successful
been like
species
one
ever to be on the planet.
One bearded dinosaur that like appeared.
The Bobosaurus.
Yeah.
Isn't that Conan?
Yeah, and was like, "Yay, dinosaurs!" And they were like, "Oh shit."
I mean, my point is though that a worldview that espouses an expiration date can't be healthy.
Well, I don't think
the thing
health
that's
is the issue
yeah.
with it.
Well, the thing that for me personally,
Again, but that's not.
I don't understand. Okay, I just don't understand it. It really doesn't make me a difference what you believe in. But what I don't understand is why must you worship? Why must you?
Why must a perfect God be worshipped?
Well, even if he's imperfect God, why do you have to worship him? He knows that he's going to kill everybody in the world, and that the people who believe in him
Yeah, I
are
know what
going.
you're saying, yeah.
It's just why
And
do you?
none of his mountains match. Everything he makes.
I think that's.
But I just want to bring up one point though. May 21st, 2011 is a Saturday, and y'all all motherfucking better be here.
Yeah,
because
I know,
we have
right?
a show to
Wait,
do.
we should call him up. Oh my god.
Oh, a wedding.
Oh, sure you are.
Oh, well, those
You-
people really picked the wrong day to get married. They totally messed up. Did they know? Did you inform them?
At least I'll be in a church.
But he said that the church.
If we're here on May 21st doing the show, if we don't call him, we made a mistake.
No,
I would love to call him. Like, hey, dude, what's going on?
You'd have to call him.
How's that rapture working out for you?
No. I mean, fine. I mean, he could disappear because even in the works that I've read, we won't know when the rapture happened because the believers will be taken away and we won't know that they're gone.
Well, if he answers the phone,
I mean, he may not be a true believer. Maybe in the eyes of God.
Yeah,
well, that's another part of the whole thing that agitates me.
chosen.
Well, yeah, like he mentioned, like the chosen, and
Because
right,
I'm incapable of faith. I mean, I just.
well, I
I'm
thought you
not-
would be
I'm
interested
not.
in.
You
the
wear
idea,
black all the time, that's
what was the last show you were talking about? The
What'd you say?
you
I
like
said you
the
wear black all
protected
the time.
Yeah.
peoples. You know, there's those isolated tribes that are
Oh,
protected.
right. Yeah.
They've never seen a Bible. They don't know who
Right.
Christ. They have no idea.
But
and
he's-
and his attitude was like, well, it sucks for them.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
think,
he said that God
was
would
it-
have
was it
have compassion on him.
Augustus that wrote the whole like grace of God. Like, some people are born with it, some aren't. Doesn't really matter what you do. You either have the grace of God or you don't. You could be devout and follow. But you're not really chosen. And
Yeah.
then, or you could, live like me and be a chronic masturbator and still go to heaven. I mean, I don't. It's just.
Well, okay.
Maybe Brother Mike is listening right now. Oh my God! He said that.
No. He seems to have a good sense of humor.
You know what?
But
Hey,
the question
maybe
I
if he's
have,
listening, he's praying for our souls right now.
yeah, and there's
God bless
nothing. I mean, if he truly believes in his heart, then there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
And playing the devil's advocate, since we have the atheist in the house, the proclaimed atheist in the house, let's talk about morals. How can you have morals and be an atheist?
That's an interesting question. And there's a guy who's working on that right now. His name is
He's
Sam
working on
Harris.
morals, or he's
and
just-
he was the guy that wrote the book. What was it called? I know the one was Letter to a Christian Nation, and the End of Faith.
Yeah.
Really good books.
You could also.
And so he is right now he's working on a doctorate in neuroscience at, I don't know, some Ivy League school like Yale. And he believes, and I think he's right, that you could prove the existence of morals. You could do it scientifically. You can conduct experiments to show that morality does not stem from a Bronze Age text, but morality stems from something that's inherent to the human condition.
Well, I think that's easy enough in showing that there are moralities in societies before they were ever introduced into the Yahweh cult.
Oh, exactly. I agree. I agree. I think morality existed
I like
before
that little
the-
jab in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't read any of those. I did read. God, it was a long time ago. It was Ethics for the New Millennium, which is a
That's the Dalai Lama book. Yeah.
One of the shit ton that he has out. And even he makes arguments, because in Buddhism, some are into a god, but for the most part, that's not even the question they're after. It's like, maybe he could be a cool guy, but I'm worried about now. And he has chapters on it that are just like, yeah, you don't need this to be moral. You just be moral.
Well, even Richard Dawkins, he makes the case that we're evolutionarily designed to be moral. We're designed to be. I don't want to say design. I can't believe I used the word design.
It's evolutionary advantageous.
Right, it's evolutionary. I know. God, I'm like, I lose like atheist skeptic points.
Yeah.
Right, there's an evolutionary advantage to being moral and altruistic.
Well,
and they show that with things like the prisoner's dilemma.
It keeps you fed.
Exactly. I mean, we're a species that lives in groups, and if you're the sociopath, no one's gonna want to share with you. So
then how did this group get together?
Yeah.
Once the sociopaths have been exorcised, they must form their own subgroup.
But that question of morality is, I think it's an excellent
Which
question.
is good, because if all the shit goes down, I'm going to have to be the one to hunt for us.
Are you going to use your bow staff skills?
Yeah.
That's funny. Because, we do have a strange morale here just because there's 3 vegans, vegetarians, and 1 meat eater.
Who attends Buddhist temple once a week now. Yeah.
But anyway, you were going to say about...
No, I just agree. It's a good question, but I think that in time that it will be answered, and it will be answered succinctly, and it will show that morality exists outside of religion.
Well, it's funny. When I started... every once in a while, go into these classes at this temple. I was talking to a guy there who was a former drug addict and alcoholic, and he had a problem with AA because it, says
the higher power.
The higher power, and he was, I guess he had a therapist or someone who was recommending that he go to AA, and he was like, I can't do this. I have no faith in a higher power. I only believe in me. And what
was he John Lennon?
No, he wasn't. And then he said cuckoo's true.
Right.
Yeah. And then Ferris Bueller came out and he had I could be the war. Still wouldn't change the fact that I didn't get a car for Christmas. So while he was talking about that, there was a psychology student that was there from Regent. And she was there for part of one of her classes, and she was saying that, I don't know how true this is, but years ago it was thought that you couldn't do it yourself. You needed to have faith in something, and psychology is now going, oh, wait. You can just have the strength within yourself, and you don't need this, whole system of AA. Yeah. Or at least the higher power part. And... AA
was started by Bill W., right? And his psychology credentials were that much.
Right.
He started an organization, and I'm sure it's helped a lot of people. But the basis of AA
is the guy with the
in
academics
or even any kind of huh? I know, right?
Fuck that guy. He doesn't know.
I don't have a problem.
What talking about.
Oh, is that funny, man?
I believe in myself.
No, but he started that whole movement, and he had no psychology training.
Well, neither did L. Ron Hubbard.
Well, look at Dr. Phil. Even Dr. Phil, if you take modern times, it doesn't, it's bizarre to me. I grew up in Texas, and you've met my mom.
Yeah.
And she's going to listen to this program. She's excited about this program. She sent me many of texts about this program.
Wow. I'm excited. Your mom's excited.
She goes, I really want to listen to about Judgment Day. But I grew up going to church camp. I spent weekends and week-long church camps. I've been baptized like 4 times.
The other ones
That
just
it does
didn't
not
take.
work.
The other ones didn't take. Yeah,
Well, everybody thought I was evil.
I wonder why.
We're gonna need some more water.
Well, you know what's funny is I mean I was raised in a church too, and I was baptized Episcopalian. I went to church for a long period of time. My mother's Episcopalian, my father's Catholic. They couldn't agree on which church to go to, so they eventually, when I was about 10, decided to go to my father's best friend's church, which was Southern Baptist. And after going there for a little while, attending church camp and Bible study, I was
I
like,
did that.
fuck it, I'm done. Like,
You know what killed it for me? I was in Bible school, and we were talking about where black people came from. And
would have been a more interesting conversation if you were Mormon.
but I'm Texan, so that's a
It's like a Mormon.
yeah.
Without the cool underwear.
Yeah, and they told us that the Sodom and Gomorrah story of the birth that came from if I can remember this correctly. Yeah,
Genesis 19, Lot and his 2 daughters
yeah,
in the cave.
and that's where black people came from.
Really?
Yeah, and I was little. I was way little, and it wasn't until later in life that
Were there
I.
other black people that were with you?
Oh, there was no.
Not
No, seriously. Growing up, we only had like 3 black people through, in my whole school career. And I happened to date one my freshman year, and we were hanging out.
They did not like you and him together.
No. It's true.
Basketball captain. In the
Yeah. No. And we were sitting around their
the
house,
pond.
and her mom is really Christian, and we were talking about it. And I was like, how can you believe in this when this is what they say you came from?
what's-
you know what
what's
her
the-
answer
what's
was?
the story?
You know what
'Cause
her
I'm not-
her answer was? She goes, no, that's where white people came from.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
funny. That's awesome.
so
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, like you were told you were told a story that denigrates another individual, another group of people simply based on the accident of the color of their skin.
Accident? What are you trying to say?
I'm saying,
Is that
I'm
some
saying,
kind of
I'm
white
saying,
supremacy?
I'm saying,
remark?
it's a turn of phrase as in the accident of birth. You can't
yeah,
help how you're born,
Yeah.
and
and they totally
The
excluded
that's
the-
reprehensible to me.
Yeah.
and they totally took out any aspect of region or anything.
Right.
But I mean that's what they teach you. That's what we were told, and you didn't question it because you're in church, and it's the way.
I
of
only went
God.
to Sunday school. We went and we went to like vacation Bible camp, which was like
Well, I
once
said
a
I did
week.
that too.
Yeah.
I did that.
And my mom was a babysitter, so she just wanted like a couple hours to get everyone out of the house. And then I found out later why we only ever went to Sunday school and not to church. I didn't care for the church part. The Sunday school was cool, make shit out of macaroni and stuff like that.
You had that felt
Yeah.
board that you put the
Yeah. Turns out, with 3 kids, that was the only time my parents had to do it. According to my oldest sister, they were like, she was like, "Yeah, about that." And I was like, "Son of a bitch!" It
You're in school getting a
corresponds with
little
the-
Jesus, and mom and dad's knocking boots.
Yeah. So I don't
Gotta
know
respect that a
if
little bit.
they had the best intentions in mind.
Well, no, they had the best intentions in mind.
What's funny is, I always assumed my parents were really Christian because we would talk about different faiths, and my dad would be a little uncomfortable about it, and morality, and he'd be like, well, we just wanted to give you some sort of basis to, just so no one could blame us, I guess.
Yeah.
And but then I went over a couple years ago, and they're like, yeah, we don't believe in anything. There's no fucking way. And I was like, you're atheist? And they were like, yeah, we'd like to believe.
We were in it for the free babysitting.
They were like, they won't really come out and say it. It's like which is what I consider myself. They're like paranoid agnostic. They're just like, probably not, but I got this charm.
Yeah.
I got,
Paranoid agnostic.
that's what
It's a new one. I haven't heard that.
it's kind of like a jack of all trades. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say that I'm atheist or agnostic. I just don't care. I don't.
You're apathetic.
exactly.
No, it's not even apathetic. It's because I'm like, I thought of this. We were talking about this the other day. I have a Bible with my name on it that's wrapped in leather, dead animal skin. That's how much it was given to me at, growing up. So I've seen both sides of it, but it never really, I never really cared because it didn't matter. What I believe in terms of if there's an afterlife, if there's a God, if there's a Satan, if I worship Satan, if I worship Buddha, it doesn't.
I gotta step in here and say no one worships.
Well, I know, but I'm just throwing randomness out there. It doesn't change my steps that I take during the day, at all.
Right.
I mean, that's a good point. But obviously, in the case of Brother Mike, I would say that there's a person whose belief system defines him.
Well, I mean, it's no different from veganism. It's no different from animal rights activists.
Seriously, if I gotta see another
I
fucking
disagree.
Save Me Pig on a Norm,
I disagree because when you talk about what your belief system is, whether you have a religious belief or some kind of spirituality, when you say you don't care, that doesn't guide your steps. However, your stance on animal rights, that does guide your steps. That guides your steps in very specific ways. I mean, that defines you, not your spirituality.
I wouldn't even say that. I mean, it's all just one part of.
I mean, because we all know that just from experience that animal rights, veganism, activism, to an extent, to certain, not across the board in the same way, not across the board with Christianity, they parallel the same message. They parallel the same actions and end results. One may be Armageddon, the other one may be healthier, happier, longer life. But
I do think the points of intersection are really interesting.
You're probably for abortion, aren't you?
Yeah.
well, I mean,
What
shoes you wear?
Yeah, I think the more interesting parts of life are where you can find the common ground, and I do think it's interesting that the atheist movement does have common ground with the animal rights movement. It really does, and in fact, one of the big sort of champions of that. You guys all right? Hey, holla. Right. So I love that Richard Dawkins is behind the Great Ape Project.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if you know about the Great Ape Project, but it's a movement to assign what we perceive as human civil rights to great apes because they are our cousins. They are our close cousins. And the question that Richard Dawkins asks all the time is this question of speciation and who are we to draw those lines in the sand and to say that this being is lesser or greater than another, and I don't know. I just think that that's an interesting facet of that atheist skeptical movement, I do think common ground can be found, and I think that your belief as a vegan animal rights person, that does guide your steps, whereas what someone else thinks about. Or what you think about their religion, like you say, you don't care. It doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just, for example, there's a lot of Christians that believe that, even if they do believe that next month is end of the world, they don't care about animal rights. They don't give a shit.
Well, that's why I say that expiration date is an unhealthy attitude because they're like, well, fuck it, we're gonna, it's all bets are off on the 21st. I mean. If I really felt that way, I wanted to ask Brother Mike, when you asked him about how he felt, and I didn't think he was going to say it was a publicity stunt. I thought that he would say that he was sincere. Yeah. Well, but I wanted to be like, well, you care to wager on that? How about I call you on the 22nd, and you can write me a big fat check?
I mean, if he believes it, I mean, I don't want to keep picking on Brother Mike, but if people believe, it doesn't matter if it's the 21st, the Mayan calendar, whatever, that the world is going to end what does that do to a person in their daily life? I mean, not in the fact that they worship harder and they pray harder and they care more, but what does it do psychologically? Because if you knew you had
Causes
cancer
them
and
to
you were going to
cause
die
them,
in a
yeah.
week, what the fuck are you going to do?
I drive around in a big gas guzzling SUV, and I would eat French fries every day.
But we do that
and
already.
I'd stop at Dunkin' Donuts 3 times a week.
But if you knew Armageddon was next month, what the hell do you do?
Exactly that.
But so what stopped? I mean, but none of that's happening.
Well,
It has happened before, though. I mean, when the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think
Was
it was
it
in
like
1910.
oh,
When they
I could have swore they
it was
thought
they
it again.
actually they stopped making predictions in the 70s, I believe.
Oh.
But they're batting 0 for 9. I think it was in 1910. I could be wrong. It might have been 1914. They made so many predictions, but
Damn Atheists.
I mean, they were people who literally sold their houses, sold
Yeah.
their businesses, didn't grow crops.
I
Like,
got a sweet deal.
and, like,
I know, right?
Honestly, like went to Jerusalem to wait for Jesus, and then he didn't show
Sitting
up.
on that hill.
And-
Right. Well, that's a good question. What do you do on the next day?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I was trying to ask him, but
But he sincerely believes there will be no next
but that's
day.
what I'm saying is like if you
That's why I
sincerely
wanted him to put his money where his mouth is.
even if it's not the money with your mouth is how does that affect you daily? Like they found this out when did they start posting about May 22nd 21st?
Dude, that's gonna suck. It's like when you wanted that bike for Christmas and
Yeah.
you were like, gonna get that bike. I'm gonna get that bike. Oh, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's another Christmas.
Guess I'll play with this ball in a cup. You know, it's
Wait, but you still have another Christmas to look forward to the bike.
right.
It's
Well,
not-
he'll have plenty of other May
Yeah.
21st.
Well, I'm just seriously going back to that. If you knew you were going to die within a week, no matter if it's Judgment Day, Armageddon, cancer, hit by a truck, if you knew you were going to die,
Autoerotic
and that it's over, it doesn't matter your spiritual beliefs. If you knew you were going to die, psychologically, that fucks up your daily life.
I agree. I do agree. And right. And so now, and you're talking about the impact of one person who knows that they're going to die. They know that there's an expiration date. What would that one person do? Now imagine an entire culture, an entire nation of people that are thinking that way. And you know, like I know you're interested in sustainability and looking forward. There is no looking forward when there's no tomorrow.
That's the problem I have with a lot of apocalyptic. I don't want to say cults. That's not right.
Yeah, it is.
But a lot of
Groups.
Thank you. Cult is too
Yeah.
strong of a word. It's not appropriate. And just, you know, we have a lot of or leaders who claim to be really Christian. And that's, even in people that I've worked with that aren't, you know, going out spreading the message over the years. I've worked with, at one company, 3 people I had a conversation with one day, and they were all talking about the time they thought Judgment Day had come. And well, I mean, one guy was from the mountains of Virginia, and he had the best accent, and he wasn't the brightest guy, not because he's from that region. He was just a fucking idiot. And he was like, Paul, I was driving my car, and all of a sudden I saw the light come through the clouds like it does in those Bible paintings, and I wondered where my children was, and it's like, dude, that's a common occurrence. It's like a prism, you know what I mean? It's just because you go to Hawaii. If you see a rainbow, it's not the end of the world. And then I worked with another guy. It made a little more sense, but something had exploded. He lived in Jersey, and something had exploded across from his apartment complex, and there was a field that was on fire. And he comes out of his kitchen, and he looks, and there's this field on fire, and there's smoke. I mean, it must have taken the whole panoramic view, because his wife was on her knees crying and praying, and he got down, and I was just like, holy shit, I would just think there's a fire, you know? The first thing that ran through my mind isn't, you know, this is probably the end, you know?
So what was it?
So it's probably a fucking like Jersey trash fire. Hell if I know. You ever driven up on this?
yeah.
There's just those things everywhere. So I think it doesn't bode well for the West that we're so obsessed with the end, and we're not looking forward enough. You know, I mean, even if I was told the end was coming in a month, I still want to get shit ready so that it works past that.
You want to make sure you have clean underwear.
Yeah, but all right. So you're talking about the end for you in a month, right? This guy's talking about the end.
No.
For everybody.
I'm talking about the end for everybody.
But I mean,
I
also,
still think you should make your bed because if there's no reason to just be like, fuck it,
But bear in mind, these people aren't seeing it as the end. Like for them,
it's
this is
forever.
this is
That's
a
true.
test
That
run,
is true.
and then they get to go forever. You know,
Yeah.
There's that.
Well, okay, wait. Since we're already talking, because that is probably a flaw in our discussion. After the final judgment, the world is set aflame. I've read many of places that after the end of the world, after the world no longer exists for whatever form, is that the earth is no longer Satan's playground. It actually is the place where the chosen come back.
There'll be no more earth. If you read Revelation, what it is there's a new spiritual kingdom in heaven. A new Jerusalem is set up.
So another
And
level of plane.
It's another plane, and it's weird. Like everything's made out of like crystals, and
it's kind of like Superman's.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Christ will come down with this green thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you know what, Superman,
awesome.
really good Jesus allegory.
You know, another thing.
You know what? Siegel and Schuster were Jewish.
All of these.
Just saying.
All of these things that are going to happen, Four Horsemen, all this, it's all based on technology from a long time ago.
Well, it's also, I mean, that's. I said it. I know I said it at the very beginning.
You want RoboCop?
When
don't
I
you?
said,
I totally think they should be
not
like
going
come
to
on a
Detroit.
jet ski or something, That would be
Or
way
jetpack.
cool.
Jesus,
Yeah.
a big wave runner comes down out of heaven
I would
with
totally
Jesus
rather
on it.
have like a ski-doo or something.
But I said at the beginning of the program, like, I believe apocalyptic literature is absolutely like one of the most misread pieces of text in the entire Bible, and like context makes up everything. Like you can't read Beowulf or Shakespeare or Plato and not apply context to it. And a lot of Christians fall into the, literal reading of the Bible, and that's it. But apocalyptic literature is usually a socio-political tract. Like when you read Daniel wasn't written in the 6th century BCE. It was written in the 2nd. And the person who wrote Daniel wasn't talking about the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. He was talking about Antiochus IV, who was the emperor of the Seleucid Empire. And John wasn't writing about some far-flung future where like Jesus is going to come down. He was literally critiquing the Roman Empire right then. Like the beast with 7 heads. That's Rome. 7 heads. Rome is the city with 7 hills. The 10 horns, those are the Caesars that have come and passed in the imperial cult. The woman, like the Jezebel who sits on top of her, that's Roma. That's the deified persona of Rome herself. And
Are you saying we're not supposed to take the Bible literally?
I would never say that.
This sucks because there have been a couple times I have not suffered a witch to live.
I know.
So,
But the question is, have you ever sicked 2 bears on 42 children for calling you bald?
I would totally do so.
no. But I yeah.
Have you ever plucked your own eye out?
No.
If I could,
I have taken
that's a,
splinter out of my own eye before I took it out of his.
I think that's a valid criticism
wait.
of Brother Mike. Where he believes in the inerrancy of the Bible and the literal word of the Bible, and yet there's so many contradictions in the Bible. And when people say that, they're basically cherry picking what they want out of
absolutely
it.
Well,
is
but the
cherry-picking.
Bible is
No,
cherry
I mean, we
picked.
but we
Bible
do
It's
that.
a canon of
But we
it
do
is.
that. I mean,
it's a bunch of dudes who were like,
Even
oh man, it's been like what 500 years, 5 centuries. I think we should get a whole bunch of people together. What books do you want to go? Not that one.
yeah, I mean you
Yeah.
don't see a canon until
know.
367.
Because if we went with like the
Ananias,
Gospel of Saint
but-
Thomas, it would
well, if we
it would change the whole.
especially
book.
the infancy gospel
Yeah.
where Jesus,
with this,
smacks 2 kids
Yeah.
and makes them go blind. And,
Yeah.
then there's dragons and all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy shit. But one of the things I've started doing recently is I started getting involved with the International Greek New Testament Project, which is essentially what they're doing is they're building a textual apparatus currently for the Gospel of John, which means I get sent manuscripts, and then I go through the manuscripts and I transcribe them into a digital format, and then it's going to be a giant book where you'll be able to John 3:16. You open it up, see John 3:16, and you see every single variant reading, and it's ridiculous. There are anywhere between really, really conservative estimates, 100,000 scribal errors in the Bible. That's just the New Testament, up to 500,000 scribal, and that's not counting when it's like, this word's here and this word's here, and then this word's here and this word's here, because that doesn't really matter in Greek. But it's hugely cherry picked, and most of these people who love biblical inerrancy, they love the King James version, and it is wretched. I mean, it's in this 17th century English, which has been out of date since it was written, and it's based on one of the absolute worst manuscript traditions in existence. This awful 12th century manuscript tradition. So
how did you get a part of that? I mean,
I mean, I've always been fascinated with the Bible, probably since the first time I read it. I was just, I can't be for real. Like, it's insane. And the more I read it, the more I started arguing, like atheism versus Christianity. I realized I really need to understand the text more. And once you realize you need to understand the text, you really need to get down to the languages that it was written in. And then it's even more confusing because there's just absolutely so many variants.
So with your knowledge of different texts and different writings, why do you think the Bible was produced?
Why it was produced? Well, I mean, it wasn't produced as a single piece. The earliest writings we have are is First Thessalonians, written by Paul about 20 years after the crucifixion. Paul was a missionary wandering around, and he was writing these essentially letters to various churches. First he wrote one to the church in Thessalonica, one to various churches. It was a circuit letter in Galatia, one to the church in Corinth, and then another one in Corinth, and one to the Romans, and yada yada. And then eventually, about 50 years later, after the crucifixion, you have the first person sitting down and writing a biography. And it's very important that it's viewed as a biography because it's not history. It's more in line with the way Plutarch wrote the life of Alexander. He says, I'm writing biography, not history. These things may not have happened, but I believe it shows a good picture of.
So it's kind of like George Bush memoirs that he wrote, that most of the stuff that's in the book didn't happen, but he believes that it did.
Yes.
He believes that it did.
And I mean, this comes up to the point I was trying to make with Brother Mike, is that the Gospels themselves, there was Mark, and then about maybe 15 years later, you get Matthew and Luke, who are both based on Mark, plus additional sources. And the thing is, the Gospel of Luke even says, at the very beginning, Luke says, I've taken all the sources that I can find, and I'm producing this work here. I mean, he all but admits that he wasn't there to see Jesus do anything that he did. He's saying, I went out and I found this book by this person, and these stories from these people over here, and that guy said he saw something.
So he includes his bibliography in there.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's the dirty little
for suggested
secret of the
reading.
Bible that nobody talks about.
It is.
It's not a first-person account. It's letters that somebody wrote decades and decades after the fact. But a belief, a faith says, oh, this is the word of God, so it is absolutely
But what
true.
about the red text in the book that is supposed to be the language, the verbiage that God used towards people?
You could go in with a highlighter and do the same thing.
Well, no, I know, but pretty much every modern Bible that you can get, you have the black text, which is just
text,
the buffer, and then the red text is Jesus' word.
Here's the problem with that. If it is the inerrant word of God, and I love Bart Ehrman, who is the professor of religious studies down in University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He says that if it was the word of God, absolutely inspired, we no longer have those words. We have copies of copies of copies of words, and we don't know where errors were made. All it takes, the first copies were written down by scribes who wrote everything by hand.
But it says in the Bible that you cannot change the word of God or you will suffer.
That's actually only in Revelation 22.
In terms of a logic argument, that's what's called special pleading.
Yeah.
Yes. But actually, John in Revelation 22, he makes that point because that was such a huge problem at the time. Things were getting changed. In one of my favorite codexes is the Codex Bezae. It's Gregorian number 5, I believe. And in Mark 1:40 through 45 is the story of the leper, and Jesus cures the leper of his leprosy. In most modern translations, it says Jesus was moved by compassion. But in this one text, which dates anywhere between the 8th and the 5th century, it says Jesus was actually moved by anger to cast him out, because this person jumped up in his face and was like, cure me, and he's like, and smacks him, and he's done with leprosy. And then he rebukes him and sends him away and casts him out. And the language used to cast out is actually the same language that's used later on when Jesus is casting out demons and casting out evil spirits.
Well, maybe the dude was an evil spirit.
Man, we could probably talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like you point
yeah.
out inconsistencies and stuff.
Hours. You can make a whole career out of it.
Yeah.
And people have.
No, who has? Nobody's done that.
Um,
Pat Robertson? We should have got
I
him.
thought I really appreciate Brother Mike spending the time on the show, right? But at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, this is a crazy person.
I'm very glad he wasn't Fred Phelps and like screaming. He's very nice.
He made a good point there, right? He says like, oh, well, I don't. No, he didn't say I didn't hate anybody. He did say that I'm used to being hated on, right? And I could see that because some people are very reactionary, but like what is his attitude about uncontacted peoples in the South America was tough luck.
Yeah.
I hate to see what his attitude about homosexuals would be.
Well,
I'm sure it's kind of tough luck.
On his website.
Well, at least a word that rhymes with luck.
Yeah.
No, on his website.
I don't think he has a human rights stance that would be acceptable.
Well, no, they both Camping and Brother Mike have on their website a pamphlet, and there's other links that go into deeper questions. They believe that homosexuality, gay marriage, all of the stuff that's in that bubble is God's sign to the believers that the end times are coming.
Well, how would you like to be a gay couple in love and you want to celebrate your marriage and somebody says, awesome, dude, end times, cool. I'm gonna. That means I'm getting the vacation home in heaven real soon.
Well, the thing is, I mean, obviously,
let me pull it up
it's
so we can-
nothing new.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
But
Rome
I
kind of
find
excelled at,
Yeah.
and the thing was, at least there it was more accepted. So, and there seemed to be a higher prevalence of it, which makes you wonder.
Greece
I
was
like-
really
yeah,
big on
yeah,
it.
that's
the
what I'm
Romans actually stopped letting the Greeks attend the Olympics for that reason.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like, oh, we eat a lot of figs, so we're gay. I think it's like,
But that
whatever,
does do it.
no pun intended, but no holds barred. Just whatever floats your boat, and I think
that
that's
his,
just kind of.
Well, let me take a second here.
If we were more, like that, I think. Like, dude, go on
But he promotes an
Craigslist.
attitude of
It's
exclusion.
amazing how many
Well, wait,
straight
he-
dudes
here's-
are just
here's-
like
Here's the
looking
audio
for a
to the
wife,
pamphlet. This is the audio to the pamphlet, Gay Pride, the Sign of the End. And their website's not working. There it goes. But this is their pamphlet that you can download.
Competition with 2012.
What's that? No, they are the same people.
No, I said I like the slash through 2012.
Titled Gay Pride, Planned by God as a Sign of the End. This article gives more evidence from the Bible that we are very near the end of the world. Gay pride and same-sex marriage successes, a sign from God that Judgment Day is very near. The worldwide success of the gay pride same-sex marriage movement is a dramatic sign provided by God to warn the world that the world is on the threshold of Judgment Day. In the Bible, God has given a number of signs to warn the world that Judgment Day and the end of the world are very close.
This dude just says the gay marriage is a sign. It's a sign of the end times.
Yeah.
And I disagree.
I think we all disagree.
I think it's a sign of social progression. I mean,
first of all, let's look at the benefits.
Love the
30
great
something
benefit
man.
analysis.
No, really. Let's look at the benefits, because I mean, I love my wife, but if I could switch, the benefits would be: one, men generally make more money than women. Better house. I wouldn't be living in that shitty apartment. Two, better design. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't want to be
you're a
some
stylish
cliche.
guy now, man.
Yeah,
you don't
well,
need.
There was that
I
thing
think we have a connection here, Lou.
and accepting more.
That's cool. I'm with you.
So better design.
For those
Probably-
who are
probably
listening to the
better
audio,
food, let's
Paul's
be
touching.
At least healthier food. You know what I mean? I mean, what? Yeah. Don't get mad because I'm comparing you with my
Ideal
theoretical, dude. Who, by the way, is Kurt Russell.
Yes, we've already had this conversation on the show.
Yeah, Snake. Yeah. Hey.
I'd totally be gay for
Look,
Snake
I bought
listening.
this new moon. I bought this new Monet. And I'd be like, I love impressionism, Snake. So do I. I was torn between Francis Bacon. I know you have a dark side, but I thought water lilies would go better with the window treatments. I mean, thanks, man.
You've done this too long, man.
I really thought about that a lot.
Yeah, man. Stronger.
So-
hands-
so what do you say?
stronger
What do you-
hands
what do
for
you
a
say?
back rub. I mean,
The benefits just go on and on.
it's awesome.
Oh, I'm scared.
Well,
You don't have to buy separate, like,
I mean,
scented soaps or shaving cream. You know, Barbasol, dude.
right.
You know.
Does it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that any modern organization that espouses an idea that someone else is a sign of the end times, come on, man. Like, how insulting has that got to be?
Well, I mean, like, the thing is, that claim really isn't any different than when, like, the mainline Protestant Christians who are waiting for the end times are just absolutely waiting for, Israel to nuke Palestine.
Well, you know what? I think that it's and I kind of admire
Palestine gets
Brother
such a
Mike
bad
at least
rap,
for his.
man. Israel is such
There's a large portion of the population right now that they are biblical literalists. They are young Earth creationists, and they're just waiting around for the end times. Brother Mike's only taking it one step further by putting a pin on the calendar.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And you know what? Hey, man, kudos to him for doing that. At least he sticks by his guns. But
and
I can't. I'm telling you,
at least he's trying
if
to
we don't
help,
call
you
him
know.
up on the 21st, we're here tonight, and we don't call him
22nd,
up.
man.
Is the 22nd a Saturday?
Yeah.
No,
It's the
21st
21st
is
is the-
Saturday.
Yeah, we're totally calling.
But I would love to
No,
do the call on
But we
Sunday.
can't do it on Sunday because we don't broadcast on Sunday unless.
No, it should have happened that day already. We can even let it go,
Well,
figure out when
No,
Greenwich Mean
but
Time
he-
is, right?
he
Like
didn't-
maybe we call him up and he's like, "I'm still waiting, man."
Well,
Any
Greenwich Mean Time's
second.
5 hours back. So,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
even if we broadcast at 7, that's
But
actually,
let's be honest.
that's midnight at Greenwich Mean. Then
Do you
it would-
think, like,
know?
God's
Well, I
going,
guess
oh,
I-
wait, hold on. Well, is it Greenwich Mean Time yet?
And, like, you call him up,
Was
he's like,
I going
"Wait
by
for it,
Pacific or,
wait
you know,
for
I
it."
mean,
we would actually be broadcasting at
I would
Greenwich
assume
Mean.
he would go by, like,
That,
whatever
what?
time
Their
it is in
calculation
Israel.
doesn't take into account time
Time
zones.
zones. No, it
Ken-
actually does. They do make the claim about Greenwich Mean Time.
really.
I read
really?
a couple of the books on his site
I would
in preparation for this. this
I
interview.
would
Yeah,
assume it would
well,
go
yeah.
by whatever
At least he's
time
meticulous.
is
Yes.
it is in Israel. I mean, that's kind of where the
Because
whole,
that's where they.
that's where the whole stage is.
Yeah.
For the play.
Just outside in the plains of Megiddo.
Maybe I could call him up and like, "Hey, man, you've got some cash you want to get rid of? We can take care of that."
Yeah, you have a
Buy
house.
stocks. Everything
I
must
just
go.
don't know, man.
No middleman.
You put that kind of expiration date on something, it just
There's
makes
one
you.
guy I love watching, and I can't remember. I don't know, maybe you've seen him. It's a guy and his wife. They've been doing it for years. He's got a big silver. I'll just have to
Benny
figure.
Hinn?
No. But all he does is talk about Revelation. Like, he still has a show on.
It's not Popov, is it?
Maybe. And his wife has like, well, they all have huge hair.
Yeah.
Popoff was the guy. Popoff was the guy. His wife was really involved in his ministry.
very charming,
and he
yeah.
did a lot of. And he's back.
They have to be.
He did a lot of. He was a
They're called
faith healer,
charismatics for a reason.
Yeah.
and he would do the faith healing bit where he would pull somebody out of the crowd.
No, there's no faith healing in this.
Yeah, all right, well that's totally Popoff, and he got destroyed. Like he would pull people out of the crowd.
You know
and
who
say,
I miss? Scott. What was his name? The old man in the beard that would sit down in front of the TV, the cameras, and say, "I'm not going to talk about this Bible until I reach this amount of money."
Yeah.
George C. Scott, not George C. Scott. That's somebody, what is his name?
Oral Roberts did that with his
Oral
ministry. He was the one that
Roberts.
said he's got to get to 1 million or God's gonna kill
The
him.
man with the most ironic name ever, Creflo Dollar. Oh yeah, no,
Those guys are charlatans, though, man. Come on, they are fleecing the public.
I remember when I worked at a funeral home, and I was getting ready for the funeral, and the guy that was going to do the service came in, and he did a lot of ours. He was like the call to minister. Not that you can't be wealthy in this. I mean,
the Pope lives in a palace.
yeah,
all I'm saying.
Dude, yeah, this guy, he had the biggest rings on though. It was like a diamond for every disciple. It was like massive. Nice Bentley. I mean, it was.
Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with making a buck.
There's not.
Nothing wrong with making a buck, but it's just
That's
how
why we
you
do this
it.
show.
Yeah.
Rolling in it,
Rolling.
son.
Bear in mind, it's tax exempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear that
Yeah.
Fiesta roll up, son? 93.
You're OG.
Yeah. Anyway, it is not 9:04, so we
You know how
are
we
past
do.
time for end of the show. I don't know if I did it at the top of the show, but I definitely want to thank the Boot for loaning us the mic stands that we needed for the full house tonight.
Those kids are awesome there.
Yes, great food. It's a local kitchen wine bar here in Norfolk, Virginia. Check it out, the Boot. Just Google it. You'll find the
got a
website.
month left to eat there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, right? Get there, but make your reservation before the 21st. You're screwed.
they're great people, very nice people. They were nice enough to loan us this when I was in a time of need, because I didn't ever expect Zombie Popcorn to have 4 people, 5 people on the show. So very, very grateful for the Boot. Thank you, guys.
What is that? Is that like completion or atonement?
That's atonement.
What's the helmet?
I don't feel atoned.
Yeah. Not with this show.
Damn. And I want to thank Ken for coming on. You're welcome back anytime with the show. Definitely, I have the links on zombiepopcorn.com right now that you can check out all his writings and his YouTube page if you want to keep up on what he's doing. He also picked Zombie Popcorn's book club book of the week pick. If you
That
want,
looks hilarious.
if you want to talk about that real
is.
quick before we go out.
It's one of my favorite books. I love satire. I love religious satire, and absolutely everything by Christopher Moore is amazing. But it's a story of Jesus, the missing years between the time he's 12 until he's 30 and starts his ministry, and then it goes on to the crucifixion. But it's all filled in from the point of view of his best friend who tags along with him as he travels to the east. And
It's like Holy Moses in book form.
yeah, like, Jesus learns kung fu and becomes a Zen
Well,
master.
there are
and
people that claim he went to India and
yeah,
is
it's
confused with Buddha.
the gospel of Isa, but
Yeah.
Buddha was 500 years
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. But,
Don't ever
who's
let facts
splitting-
get in the way of a
Yeah.
good
Right.
story.
It's really good.
Siddhartha
It's a very funny
Sakamani.
fusion of like comedy and the Bible, but it's a riot.
You can get it at Zombie Popcorn Book Club. It's called Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christ Childhood's Pal.
I like. Did you ever see the Family Guy where Stu comes back from heaven? Like he's. I think it's the Poltergeist one, and Brian's like, "So what was it like?" He's like, "Oh, I met Jesus up there," and he's like, "Really, really, yeah." What's he like? He's Chinese. What he said? Said it's like his last name's I don't know. Chong doesn't know where people are getting the Christ from. It's just like, wow.
That's funny.
Awesome.
So yeah, so you can go to the Zombie Popcorn Book Club, pick up that, or at least check it out.
We could do this for hours.
We could. Maybe we'll go an overtime bonus or something. But
Yeah, not
No.
with me.
thank you, Bob, for coming back. Thanks. You're
man,
you're
I
gonna, you're
was
gonna be here
excited
next
about this.
weekend, though, right?
Not next weekend.
Because you switched because of that.
I switched around, so I'll be a couple weeks.
Right now, we don't have anything set up for interview for next weekend. It's just going to be an open show. So if you
Don't
have
make it
anything
something awesome that I could schedule around for.
so if you have anything, let us know. If not, we'll just have back to the basics. The week after that, on the 30th, we have Will Potter.
I will be here.
Who's Will?
Oh, you won't be. Will
No.
Potter is a good friend of mine. We grew up. We were activists in Texas. We worked on various different things. He runs the website thegreenisthenewred.com.
I might have to come for that.
Huh?
I might have to come for that.
Yeah, you should welcome. You're definitely welcome to come for it. We're going to talk about activism, how the federal government and the terrorist enterprise, Animal Enterprise Act and terrorism are affecting peaceful protest and peaceful activists, and how people are being locked up for that. And his book talks firsthand. But we'll go into all that. You'll see it on Zombie Popcorn. Thank you, Brother Mike, for taking the time out to talk to us. Very, very grateful for your time and the things that you share with us. And if anybody wants to learn more about his stuff, it is May-2011.com. And everything else is zombiepopcorn.com. Thank you. And I want to go out with a video before we go to our music break. This is If Atheist Ruled the World. The video was created from text found on religious forums.
This isn't the one about the. Never mind.
So here it is. Everybody have a good night. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. The rebroadcast will be up Wednesday. Have a great night.
See if I can paint you a little picture. If atheists ruled the world. So, atheist son comes home to his mom. Hi, Mom. Hey, son. And then the son would probably say something like, Hey, Mom, I'm going to go fuck a hooker. No problem, son. Don't be home late. Oh, I might be, because then I'm going to go smoke pot with my friends, since it's not addictive. Oh, fine with me, son. And then the atheist dad would come home. Hi, honey. Hey. How's your day? Oh, I'm pregnant again. Looks like I'm going to have to get another abortion, since fetuses aren't actual human life. Oh, no problem, honey. Get as many abortions as you like. Okay, I will. Oh, and don't go in the bedroom, because there's 2 gay men fucking in there. Why are there gay men, honey? Because I wanted to watch the gay men. And then he wouldn't care. He'd say, okay, that's fine with me. And then probably the atheist neighbor would run in. Quick, there's a Christian outside. Oh, we were coming. And then they'd grab their black robes and their hoods. And they'd run into the street, where a Christian would probably be nailed to a big wooden X, being burned at the stake, surrounded by atheists in their hoods and robes. Die, Christian! Die! We claim to be tolerant of all religions except you. We hate you because we're atheists, and we're hypocritical like that because we're atheists. Scary, isn't it?
raise the dead. Throughout history, mankind has tried to raise the dead.
Invade our souls and minds, corrupt and defile us, and mark us forever with the sign of evil on our forehead.
History.